in need. Ontario's social safety net was built on compassion. And the idea is that we look after each other, lending a hand when times are tough. We must be there for people living in poverty and people living with disabilities. And being there for others means critically looking at the system we have today and asking, can we do better? The sad truth is that social assistance in Ontario is simply not working for the people it is intended to support. It traps people into a cycle of dependency. And far too often it robs them of the dignity and independence of a job. We can do better, we must do better, and we will do better. Here's how. Since the summer and throughout the fall, I have led a 100-day consultation on the future of social assistance in the province of Ontario. We've discovered this. Almost 1 million people are on some form of social assistance at a cost of $10 billion annually. Yet despite that, 1 in 7 people remain in poverty. Sadly, only 1% of those on Ontario Works successfully transition into the workforce in any given month. And when a person does move off Ontario Works, 80% return to government support within a year. Clients, social workers, professional auditors, including Ontario's Auditor General, tell us that the system we have is far too focused on red tape, administration, and government oversight. For example, there are currently over 240 income support rates and combinations, and a web of over 800 rules. This makes navigating the system confusing and time-consuming for recipients and caseworkers. They say the system takes a one-size-fits-all approach that ignores the needs of the individual, local realities, and fails to leverage community support networks. Finally, they tell us that Ontario Works feels like it's more about policing the people of Ontario rather than empowering them. I've been in public service for 20 years, and I've personally met many of those who have been on social assistance and who've come out the other side. From their stories, I've learned a key truth. All things being equal, when people can work, they want to work. Our current social assistance system, built under the Ontario Liberals, fails to recognize this. Their system discouraged initiative, and their system rewarded inaction. And cynically, it left people dependent on government and trapped in a cycle of poverty. That's why I'm proud, very proud, to stand in front of you today to announce a renewed social services approach to social assistance. One that prioritizes dignity, independence, compassion, empowerment, and accountability. I want every dollar we spend on social assistance to do one of two things. First, to provide compassionate support for those who clearly cannot re-enter the workforce. And secondly, provide meaningful assistance to those who can work so they can find a job, stabilize their life, and get back on track. We're going to introduce these changes in a careful and measured way that minimizes disruption for those who are currently on the system. But we will fix this. We will help more people stabilize, find a job, and build a better, more independent life. I believe we can do so much more to support Ontario's disabled community. The changes we will make to support the disabled will focus on simplifying our program, reducing red tape, and providing people with more flexibility. As we commence on this redesign, here are the principles that we will follow. First, we will align the definition of disability with a well-understood standard, and in particular, we are exploring how to align the definition of disability with that is used by the federal government. This will allow us to provide clarity and consistency and help us to target support to those whose disability precludes them from entering the workforce. Second, rather than forcing ODSP recipients to undergo a review of eligibility for benefits on a monthly basis, this will now be done annually. And third, we will emphasize customization and choice. Those on the program will now be able to earn up to $6,000 a year without deductions and have access to health spending accounts to choose the benefits that are most suitable for their situation. In short, our new program will provide the disabled with dignity, trust, and empowerment. Our changes to social assistance will be just as meaningful. For the program to work, it needs to help people get back to work. It's right there in the title of the name of the program, Ontario Works. Here are the principles that we will follow. First, our program will empower communities to better respond to local needs. In particular, we will partner with and support municipalities. We'll give them more power to choose how to deliver social assistance. Second, we will empower frontline caseworkers. There will no longer be one size fits all from Toronto. We will ensure that caseworkers will have time to support and lift up individuals. Instead of focusing a majority of their time on burdensome paperwork, as is the case today, we will free up caseworkers' time to focus on the person in front of them. One thing every caseworker I have ever met has said to me is they got into their line of work to help people. This plan will help them do that. So we're going to make it easier. Under our program, caseworkers will focus on the creation of individual action plans, not proof of eligibility. Third, our social assistance program is designed to support Ontarians in their return to work. Part of this will involve financial incentives. Often the first step back into the workforce for people on social assistance will be through an entry-level or minimum wage job. And quite frankly, if the gap between this take-home pay and social system supports is too small, it's a disincentive for people to ever leave the system. That's why I was so proud to work with our Minister of Finance, Vic Fideli, on the Low-Income Individuals and Family Tax Credit, or LIFT, in the fall economic statement. That credit alone would put up to $850 a year back into the pockets of low-income earners. By taking the provincial government's hand completely out of the pocket of minimum wage and low-wage earners, we are creating an additional incentive for people to re-enter the workforce. And this is just one example of how our redesigned social assistance plans will work with other ministries. And that's why I'm proud here to be with my colleague, Minister Marilee Fullerton, and her team at the Ministry of Training, Colleges and Universities to ensure for the first time ever in Ontario's history that social assistance isn't just with social services, it's within the entire government as we approach it in a multi-ministerial way. In particular, we will better coordinate Employment Ontario and social assistance. We'll make sure that Employment Ontario services are clearly and consistently positioned to provide real employment supports to Ontario Works recipients to get them back into the workforce. We'll build incentives for this new program to reward staff and service providers who find employment for someone who is struggling. Jobs are out there. Employers are looking to fill many positions. And the government, quite frankly, can also do a better job to serve as a clearinghouse that connects employers and potential employees. Whether it's something as simple as listing opportunities on a website or facilitating connections between potential employees and employers. And we're in alignment with the Open for Ontario Business Act. The new Open for Business website will help make those connections between employers and potential employees easier. You can find it at ontario.ca/open-for-business. This website will be an invaluable tool for people leaving social assistance. It will ensure they have better information at their fingertips on the numerous job opportunities that are available to them. Employers can also post opportunities at employer.jobbank.gc.ca. We will embrace a true wraparound model that is customized to meet the needs of the individual. That's training, job placement, mental health and addictions support, childcare, housing, or life skills support. It will all be tailored to meet the individual's circumstances. The Ontario Works recipient, their caseworker, and the municipalities under which they will operate will all have the proper incentives to identify a job opportunity and break the cycle of dependency that has trapped too many people for too long in the province of Ontario. It's time to be bold and have the courage to fix a broken system. For the people also means for the people that are on social assistance. And it's time we help more people who can find work get their lives back on track. Happy to take any questions. Don't all ask at once. Oh, well,
Minister Travis Standridge, Global News.
Hey, Travis.
Just two quick questions on if you can provide some clarity on the timeline for when some of these changes will be implemented, and also what will the new definition of disability be here in Ontario?
Thanks, Travis, very much for your question. So we will be implementing this over the next year and a half. There will be pilot projects that are going to be moving forward through the Ministry of Employment. We want to make sure that we do this gradually so we do not disrupt people who are in need. We're talking about 1 million people, so we are going to lead with our heart. We just wanted to let people know that these changes will be taking place. So in terms of the lift, that will take place when the bill passes, and so in the new year, and these will be done gradually over the next year and a half of many of the other issues. We will also be doing announcements later on with the Minister of Health, the Minister of Housing, and the Minister of Education, as well as some others, because we are now for the first time taking this multi-ministerial approach and not just leaving it simply within our ministry. In terms of the new definition, we'll work with the Ministry of Attorney General, but we feel it's probably better to be in alignment with the federal government. So we'll be working on that within the ministries.
Is that going to reduce the amount of people that qualify for ODSP?
Those that are on ODSP will be grandfathered, so they will still be on the program.
Hi, Lisa. The spring budget had 3% annual raises for the next 3 years for people on Ontario Works and ODSP. I understand that this year it's being held at 1.5%. What about the next 2 years?
So let me be perfectly clear. The previous Liberal budget was based on fiction and promised a lot of things that they couldn't deliver. It became abundantly clear to me when I became the minister of what was 5 previously ministers in the Liberal government, that they had a patchwork and disjointed system that was trapping more people into a cycle of poverty. They had a Ministry of Poverty Reduction, but social assistance was elsewhere, and there were other supports for children in other places. And so when we repatriated the ministry, we took long stock to see what was happening. It's a $10 billion program, 1 million people are on it, and still 1 in 7 are in poverty. So what we said is we will hit the reset button. We'll try to revamp the system, retool it, and modernize it to make sure that it's meeting the needs of the people of the province of Ontario. And what we found is there really are 2 different groups. There are people that can work and who want to work, and we need to support them, whether that's employment skills, whether that's a local discretionary fund to help them get childcare, whether that's mental health and addiction support to get their life back on track. So we want to have that wraparound. So for the first time in 15 years, this is all repatriated in my ministry, but for the first time ever in Ontario's history, we're doing this as multi-ministry. So that's really important to me that we do that. We did give that 1.5% across the board compassionate increase, but what we're announcing here today is that those who earn money on ODSP or Ontario Works are going to be able to keep a lot more of it. And so just to this point, it used to be on Ontario Disability Supports that you were allowed to keep $200 a month without getting it clawed back. which would be $2,400 a year, but if you exceeded it in 1 month, it would penalize you. We're going to an annual system where those on ODSP are able to keep up to $6,000 of their earnings. In terms of Ontario Works, it used to be that you were allowed to keep $200 a month. We're lifting that and raising it up to $300. And in addition to that, as well as with the lift that was announced last week that keeps $850 more in people's pockets per year, I think we're making life easier and more affordable for people. So we're really excited about it, and I can tell you I'm extremely proud of this plan, and I'm extremely proud of our team for coming together to support this.
So just to be clear, there will not be a 3% increase next year and the year after that as was budgeted in March of 2018.
Well, that budget was fake, and that budget wasn't based in reality. That budget was irresponsible, and I'll not comment on what will be in the next budget by the finance minister, but I can tell you what we have announced here today. In addition to the 1.5% across the board increase that we announced in July, we have now the lift, which is $850 more in people's pockets who are low income and minimum wage earners, as well as when folks on ODSP or Ontario Works are working, we're letting them keep a lot more of their money. So this approach is based on compassion and dignity and lifting people out of the cycle of poverty. And the previous system that went on for 15 years trapped people into poverty. 1 in 7 Ontarians, that's unacceptable. My focus is on those people.
Hi, Minister. Emma Paling, HuffPost Canada. In Manitoba in the 1970s, when they had a basic income experiment, it showed that demand for healthcare services went down by 8%. And that was one of the things that economists were really excited to see in Ontario's experiment, was whether the savings on healthcare would offset the spending. And so the $17 billion number that you've cited might have been significantly lower through savings on healthcare. Why did you eliminate that as an option if it might have been cheaper in the long run for taxpayers?
Well, I'm not concerned with what was happening in 1970 in Manitoba. I'm concerned what's happening here today in 2018 in the province of Ontario, where we have a $10 billion system that is only supporting 1 million people, and 1 in 7 of them are living in poverty. I believe what we're putting forward here today is going to lift more people back on track. What we are saying here today is where people can work, we're giving them a path out of poverty, and where people can't work, we're going to wrap around supports for them so that they have compassion and dignity. And we're very excited and we're very proud of this plan. And as I stated, it is a multi-ministerial plan. No longer are we a one-size-fits-all approach coming from downtown Toronto. We're pleased to have the support of the United Way in Ottawa, the Nipissing DSAB district. We're pleased to have the support of the London Chamber of Commerce. We have support for this process right across Ontario, and I'm very pleased that I'm here with my caucus colleagues, including my cabinet colleague, to show that we can actually have a better support system in place for the people who need it.
Laurie Monsabratton from the Toronto Star. Minister, you talked about changing the definition to align with the federal disability definitions. There are many people with episodic mental health issues and injured workers who can't qualify for the CPP disability or the disability tax credit, which are the two definitions of disability by the federal government. How many people who could qualify today for ODSP will no longer be able to qualify under these proposals?
Well, I just answered that question. Everybody that's on ODSP today will be grandfathered. And on a go-forward basis, you know, they may end up on Ontario Works, and they will be provided with those wraparound supports at the local level.
But how many are you expecting to not qualify going forward? There's a fairly
I'm not going to speculate on what may or may not happen.
Hi, Minister. Paola Lorigio with the Canadian Press. How much is the government spending on this new social assistance system? Is it still a $10 billion annual expenditure?
Right now it is a $10 billion expenditure. My hope is that we can lift more people into employment and that they will be making their own money, and we can support them that way. So we're going to continue to do that. And as I stated, it's going to be a multi-ministerial approach, and I'm very excited to be here with one of my partners in the skills training area. I was very proud to be working with the Minister of Finance, and I'm looking forward to the mental health supports, the child care supports, as well as the housing supports that will come forward.
But are there some projections about the change in spending that's going to come about as a result of these changes you're making?
Hopefully the plan works and we're getting more people back on track.
Hello. A question for Minister Fullerton. So yeah, about the French cuts, the Parliamentary Committee of Official Languages want to see you in Ottawa. Will you accept the invitation?
I will have to.
Yeah, at the microphone.
Well, I appreciate the invitation. I'll have to check in on my schedule. Thank you.
But are you open to the idea to go testify in Ottawa in
Well,
front of the parliamentary?
At this point, I don't believe that's possible. Thank you.
You say yes or no?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'll have to check. Thank you.
Hi, Minister Marika Walsh with iPolitics. Overall, are you expecting that the government will be paying less money in total for ODSP and Ontario Works because of your changes?
Let me frame it this way, because that, to me, is a question that allows for the continuation of the cycle of poverty to continue. I'm going to answer it in a different way. What we're going to do for those who are on Ontario Disability Supports is provide them with not only more support, but with more money. And those who are on Ontario Works with more opportunity to lift themselves out of poverty, and we will support that. So, well, I'm not, because I reject it. Like, I think that if I'm to answer that question, what I'm actually saying is I want more people to live a life where they're reliant on government. And I grew up in a small town in Nova Scotia of 10,000 people where there was not big government, and neighbors helped neighbors, and the philanthropic community, the private sector community really stepped up and helped people and lift them up, as well as families. And we have really gotten away from that in society today. And so I think that we have a role to play as government, and there's a lot more we can do, and I'm happy to do that. But I also think that at the local level, that's where we're really going to see the greater level of supports in our communities. And I'm really pleased that people like the United Way, some municipalities have already come forward to support this plan, and job creators have. And so again, I appreciate your question, but I think it comes from a different way, from a different mindset at a different time. This is 2018. We have to move forward with supporting people. We have over 200,000 jobs that people are asking for. We met with the Ontario Electrical League today that said some of the changes that we've made as a government has allowed them to create more jobs. That's where we're focused, is if we can lift people up out of poverty, then we should be doing that rather than trapping them. That is not somewhere I'm comfortable going, is trapping people into poverty.
And so the Liberals were going to give people in the last budget $400 a month who relied on Ontario Works before they started clawing back. So why have you reduced it to $300?
You know, here's the question I have as somebody who sat in the Ontario legislature for 4 terms before this one. If the Liberals were really going to do it, why did it take them 15 years?
Fatima Syed with National Observer. This is on a different topic. We've learned from internal emails obtained through an ATIP and that the Privy Council office has confirmed that you declined to take a briefing from the federal government on the Irregular Migration Task Force just days into your jobs in early July. Why did you not take the briefing, the opportunity to learn more, before turning around and criticizing the federal government?
Well, I've had many briefings with the federal government since then. If it's early days of my job, I'll have to ask my scheduler, but let me be perfectly clear in terms of the illegal border crossing that's happening. I met with the mayor of Toronto just 2 days ago. The significant cost that he's facing as a result of the federal government's inaction has increased. We know that our costs in Ontario are at least $200 million, but let me be perfectly clear. I have met with Ahmed Hussein. I have met with Bill Blair. I have met with Dominic LeBlanc. I've met with Mark Garneau. I have met with Ralph Goodale. And I have asked them to protect the border, ensure there's greater accountability and integrity in the system. I've asked them to have greater turnaround times to process rather than 24 months to 2 months. And I've asked them to make Ontario whole. They didn't do it. But who else is on our side is every single premier in every single province and territory who believes that every province that is dealing with this illegal border crossing issue should be compensated. They stood side by side with our premier, Doug Ford, this past summer in St. Andrews.
But Minister, why not just take the briefing, even if you had decided sort of what direction you wanted to go in? Why not just take the briefing?
Well, we've had many briefings, and our government has briefed me, and I have met with the ministers many times. In fact, I have traveled to Ottawa 3 times on immigration matters. So I think that we're pretty clear on that, and I'm looking forward to hearing from the federal government on how they plan to make Ontario whole.
Mike Crawley from CBC News.
I know.
Minister, it's for the microphone. You talk a lot about the effort to try to transition people into the workforce. So what's your measure of success? Like, how are we going to know if you succeeded? Do you have a target of the number of people that you would like to see move from Ontario Works into a job?
Yeah, so we would like to, the best way we can possibly get people back into the workforce, we will. This will be done gradually, so we don't disrupt those who are on the current systems. But I think we will really look at the, we will look towards the municipalities who are going to be delivering these services locally and set those targets with them. So these are very early days with the announcement of our plan and our retool, but that's something that we're very interested in, and that's why we will incentivize them to provide those supports to get people back on track.
And can you be as specific as possible as to how you're going to improve the employment programs? Like, what are you going to do to the employment programs to make sure that they actually do what they're supposed to do?
So I'm going to answer that, and then I'm going to throw it over to Minister Fullerton, because it's really her area. What we heard loud and clear from employers over the summer, the Chamber of Commerce, the Ontario Home Builders who supports this bill, as Ontario Electrical League today, is that there are jobs out there, and we need to make sure that we can train them. And during my consultations throughout this period, we went to Belleville, and we learned of skills development that's happening there. So when a new plant is coming to town, the Employment Skills works with the Ontario Works to train those staff and get them back on track. So what we're going to do is pilot a few projects in order to do that throughout the province, and I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Fullerton, or Minister Fullerton, to answer that more fully.
Yes, thank you. So this will be the employment pilot, 3 of them, pilots will be outcome-based. So we will be looking and considering the geographic distances, the geographic variables, understanding that communities vary across the province, and what might work well in one area may not work as well in another. So we're going to be open-minded and understanding that there are geographic differences, but they will be outcome-based, those pilots. Looking at the retention in jobs, the number of jobs that employees were placed in, and outcome and performance measures. Thank you.
Last question, everyone.
Hi. With regards to grandfathering the ODSP recipients, they have to go in for regular medical exams. So are they going to be assessed under the old criteria, or the new criteria as we go forward?
Those who are on the old criteria will stay on the old criteria. Those entering will be on the new. We have heard stories of people who are carrying around medical notes from their doctors for years to come. That's unacceptable. I think that we need to have a process that is less about policing and eligibility and more about dignity and compassion and opportunity, and that's where we're going with this plan, and that's why I'm so proud of it, and that's why I'm so proud of our government for working cross-ministerial, and really grateful to my colleague, Minister Fullerton, for being here today and really signing on to this. It's going to be very exciting, and I think this revamp, when it's complete, will be something that the world over will look to as a success story. Thank you all very much.